Microsoft 365 in practice. So today we're going to talk about managed metadata, or a taxonomy, in SharePoint and Microsoft 365. Super exciting stuff! So according to Merriam-Webster, which is a dictionary, the taxonomy is a study of general principles of scientific classification. So when we're designing SharePoint sites, we actually use a taxonomy or managed metadata to organize our data. You might say that it underpins the information architecture.
What's the day-to-day of this?
Really, what we can do with a taxonomy or a term set in SharePoint is we can define a set of data. We can apply it in many different locations to classify and organize our data. It can give us search terms. It can give us navigation elements, so like menu structure. And it can be used to sort and filter lists and library entries. So here we are in the modern sandbox, and let's imagine that we want to organize our business data by business function. So I've gone to a really great website called Wand, wandinc.com, and this company, Wand, is in the business of producing taxonomies that you can download and then load into your various platforms. In our case, we're using a SharePoint one. And so this is a sample SharePoint taxonomy. The one you'll see here is free. They do sell taxonomies as well there. So I'm going to show you this taxonomy in action, and then I'll show you how we loaded it and where you can get to modify it. So let's go to our document library here, for example, and say that we are going to organize our various files by business area. So I'm going to go into the settings for this library, and I'm going to add a column. This is where we can apply a managed metadata column from our taxonomy. So I'm going to create a column in this list. I'm going to call it business area. And the type of data in here is, of course, managed metadata. The screen refreshes because now it's updating down below what are the various settings for this managed metadata field. So you'll see some of the common settings, a description field, whether it's mandatory, required or not, and whether it needs to be unique. We're also adding this to the default view at the same time. Let me skip over the JSON formatting. We can specify whether this could apply to multiple business areas. I'm going to leave that unchecked. And scroll down. Here we are, managed term set. So this is a way to navigate through our taxonomy. Notice it's got a weird name, but it starts with taxonomy. This is the default naming in Microsoft 365. And I can expand. Within our taxonomy, there's a bunch of term sets defined already. So in this example term set, if I expand, I can see this general business taxonomy. This is the one that I downloaded from Wand. And notice as I expand, you'll see that it's broken up into all these different areas like accounting and human resources and legal. And this is the first thing to notice about these managed metadata fields is that they can be hierarchical. If I were to add a simple choice field here in the SharePoint list, I could put in accounting, human resources, IT, legal, marketing, but I couldn't have these subcategories, at least not easily. So this is the first thing that managed metadata gives us. And one of the reasons I turn to it quite a bit is that when people need a hierarchical structure, this is one of the few ways to do it in SharePoint. So I'm going to go to the top level of this particular term set, the general business taxonomy. I'm going to select that, and that tells SharePoint that this field is going to use this particular term set, general business taxonomy. Now watch what happens. I'm going to say OK to save that column. And we did add it to the default view as well. So now if we take a look at the document's default view here, we now have business area column showing up here. If I edit in grid view and just show us entering some data here, if I go over to this timesheet query and click in the business area column, notice it says type term to tag. So this reveals one of the other ways that we refer to metadata as tags, right? So this is managed metadata is a set of tags that's available across all of our SharePoint sites. So we're going to add that tag. Now, so now what it's doing is working on, it's going to the taxonomy, and here it is. So now I can select, oh, all right, it's an accounting and finance, something to do with accounting policies, and let's say it's something to do with asset depreciation. I'll select that tag and say, okay. So now this particular file is tagged with asset depreciation. Let's go into the samples folder here and set a few more because I want to show you an example of how we might use this. So let's tag this one as something to do with marketing, advertising, production. Notice I can double click to tag as well. And let's drag to fill, set a few of these to advertising production. And let's tag one more down here just so we have some variety in our data. Legal, let's throw some legal at it. Let's litigate. Okay? Contract analysis, sure.
Important.
Yeah. So now that we have some data applied, this business area field is set on a few files, we can take a look at a grouped view that I've created earlier when Darius wasn't looking, called Group by Business Area. And this Group by Business Area view says, take the business area field and create a grouped or a hierarchical structure so that I can come in here, or anybody come into this library now, and they can quickly go to, oh yeah, I want to see all the files that are related to contract analysis. Notice there's only one there. And we can actually classify, maybe this sample 04 is also a contract analysis type of file. So let's go to a different site. I'm going to go to the SharePoint in Practice book site. Let's go to the leave calendar, for example. So I'm going to go into calendar, list settings, and I'm going to add another column here. Create a column in the calendar now, and let's use the same name, business area. And again, it's manage metadata. So maybe in our leave calendar here, we want to know which business area the person is taking leave from. And so now I can go through my taxonomy again, example term set, and general business taxonomy. By the way, I can expand this further, and maybe this is only a human resources term in this library. So I can actually choose subsets of these as well. Just for consistency, I'm going to do it the same as the previous example, the entire general business taxonomy. Scroll down and say OK, and then we can create a view here as well by group by, or we can use that manage metadata field in a number of ways. I'm not going to show it any further. The main thing to show here is that this is a completely separate SharePoint site, and I can see the same term set. So let's take a look at managing the term set now so that you can get a sense of how to manage this, how to create new term sets, and I'll use that also as an example to show how I can change the term set and it shows up in many places. So when I go into my site settings, you'll see term store management here under site administration. So there's two ways to get to this term store management tool. This is one way. The other is through the admin panel. So I'm going to go there, admin, just to show you. And I'm going to point out that this admin way is actually a new way of managing our term store. It looks a bit slicker, and it is relatively new. Within the last year, they've brought out this new term store management tool.
Some of our viewers might actually be familiar with the admin center. We did do an episode on that, link in the description.
We did, absolutely, yeah. So let me go to the SharePoint admin center, and right here under content services, there's the term store there, see? Just like when we were tagging, general business taxonomy, expand, and I can modify and edit these things right here. So let's say in our purposes of our business, we don't call it accounting and finance, we call it financial services. So let's go up here. I've selected it. I'm going to rename this term, and I'm going to call it financial services. And then I can save that term. And change is saved successfully. Notice also if I go into one of these, when I rename the term, there's also a place to put in synonyms. So maybe we call it accounting and finance and, you know, financial policies. So people can search for financial policies and they'll get accounting policies. So the synonyms are handy as well. Okay, so we've made a couple of changes to our term set. The main thing is that now accounting is called financial services. So if I go back to the modern sandbox here, and let me go into grid view again. And let's see this one here. We'll just change it. I'm going to remove that and I'm going to give it a new tag. We should be able to see financial services. Okay. This kind of gets me excited because I'm all about how can we efficiently manage our organizations. What this does is gives us a central place to set up that set of terms and then go ahead and use them in many places and not leave it up to the user or what they're going to classify this document as. They have to choose it from this particular list, and the list is managed centrally by a small group of people that say this is called financial services, it's not called accounting. So that is a term set and applying it. Let's look at creating the term set now. So here back in the term store management tool, here's my taxonomy with my various term sets in it. I can create a new group here, or for my example term set, let me just add a term set to this group. So let's call it ice cream flavors. Well, people know we're Canadian now because I spelled flavors that way. And now I can add terms. Now that we've created this new term set called ice cream flavors, it's now available to use throughout our SharePoint environment. Any SharePoint site, I can tag thing with ice cream flavor. If I click beside any of these term set groups, I can import a term set. So in the import process, it will actually give you some instructions here, this sample metadata.csv. You know what CSV stands for?
I do not.
Comma separated values. So it's a very common way of storing data. And in the case of our taxonomy that we imported for the example earlier, this is what the CSV looks like. So that's where we could enter a term set directly, just start typing it in, hooray. But you could see how that'd be quite tedious if you have a lot of terms, like this general business taxonomy has got a lot to it. So of course there is a term import capability. So if I go up to a term set group here and click the ellipsis, I can import term set. Now I'm not going to go through the whole process here, but I want to point out two things. One, here sample metadata.csv. Yeah, so it's just a text file where each field is quoted and has commas between it. And that's the format. It's a specific format that SharePoint's looking for to import. So you can click to open this and then you can fill it in or have your business people fill it in. There's a bit of getting used to this structure. So if anybody's having trouble with it, let me know. I can give you an example or give you support on that. Just once you have that term set data filled in into this CSV file, into your own version of the CSV file, you'd go down and you'd browse for that file and you'd select it and then you would import. So let's import a term set. I have this general business taxonomy, comma separated values file ready to go already. So I'm just going to import it again. I'm going to put it in this paradigm shifters group. So I'll click the ellipsis beside the group I'm going to import into. I'll import the term set. I don't need to download the sample. I've already got the term set built in a comma separated value file. And let me just find it here. So you should see this as this one here. Notice it's a .csv. So I'll open that. Now it shows that's the file I've selected. I'll go ahead and import it. Wait a minute. File is successful. It would show any error messages there. And now I've imported that general business taxonomy. And I've got it twice in my overall taxonomy here, but that's okay. For purposes of the example of the import, that's all.
Seems pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get your hands on one that's already all set up, then it's just a few clicks.
Yeah, I highly recommend taking a look at that WAND website for the possibility of downloading one that would apply to you. So one more thing I just want to peek at now that we've got this term set imported. Notice here there's some usage settings that indicates whether people can add to the term set on the fly. So this is currently a closed policy, meaning that it's limited. We could make it an open policy where if people go in and, with their ice cream flavors go, hey, you don't have bubblegum chocolate chip, and they can actually add it with an open policy. We can also change the sort order. So the default sort order is alphabetical, but if you edit this, you can set a specific sort order. You can reorganize your terms in whatever way you want. There's also available for tagging. So what we were showing is tagging files or list items with these terms. So the default is available for tagging. We could turn that off because we might be using the term set for something else, such as navigation, into using term sets for site navigation. So you can in fact create an entire top menu based on a term set. And imagine, if you will, that we're organizing all of our SharePoint sites or libraries around these business units or this business area that we have in the taxonomy. So you could set up a menu based on that, okay?
So if you just want to get there quickly,
Mm-hmm.
it's very relevant to whatever organization you might be a part of.
Yeah, as we saw with the editing of the data, we can quickly modify this and it gets modified everywhere. So it would be the same with the navigation. If we were to change the name financial services to the money guys, then that would show up in the menu and in tags always everywhere with whatever's defined here in the term store. That's about all I wanted to cover on term sets, taxonomy, managed metadata. Do you have any questions, Darius?
Yeah, so I noticed that these tools seem pretty powerful in terms of organizational efficiency, but they seem more geared towards a larger sort of company or group. How big do you think you'd have to be before you can really get the most out of terms?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. So first of all, just recognizing that it is available to anybody that has a Microsoft 365 subscription. So you could just be a solopreneur and still have the tool. I'd say if you have, 10 or more people or a number of SharePoint sites or more than a half a dozen or so departments, you start to look at ways to organize the data in a structured way. Some people like to organize their business more rigidly than others. This gives you a way to say, let's sit down and think about how we structure things, the information architecture. And if you have too small of an organization, the cost benefit's probably not there. It's probably not worth it because you could just say, hey, Joe, we're calling it accounting now rather than financial services, or you don't call it anything at all. You just call it stuff that you have to do. But with a larger organization, it starts to become more important to have a centrally managed set of terms that everybody can adhere to.
And of course, small organizations can in time become big organizations. So it's
Mm-hmm.
always good to keep in mind the options you may have available to you down the line.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then if you're all of a sudden you add a sales department in this example, you can add it in one place, and everywhere you've applied that term, it's available for tagging.
Through the term store and the admin panel.
Yep, yep. and in the lists where you've created fields that are attached to that. So it's this centrally modified. Yeah, I think we're talking too much.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it for today then, Darius.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad we could show our viewers all these wonderful tools that I hope they use.
Yes, it's been quite a term of events. Hey, I'm Jerry Brimacombe, and this has been another episode of Microsoft 365 in Practice. Please let me know if you have any questions, and your comments and subscriptions are welcome. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.